Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today's Dragonflight beta build brought with it a handful of changes to Warlock. More so, specifically, Demonology Warlock. Destro and F haven't really been touched. Destro is incredibly undertuned. Affliction's actually okay in single target. It feels fine, like Mythic Plus and AoE cleave. But Demonology was the focal point of changes today, more so being Dreadstalker, some Fellstorm stuff, and Demonology's Nether Portal build. Pit Lord and Tyrant got buffed. So this evening, I want to talk about that, take a look at the changes, and then go from there. Now, I will be making a video later this week based around like probably tomorrow or the next day, depending on time, what I have available time-wise, looking at things that are maybe overtuned, undertuned, and what could be changed for Warlock tuning-wise heading into Dragonflight. Pre-patch is coming. It's less than a week away. There will also be videos talking about each spec going up for pre-patch, starting probably Saturday. We currently don't know if legendaries are working in pre-patch. We're not really sure about some interactions, so those are going to be a wild ride, but they will be on the channel. But I want to start focusing more on Dragonflight things at this point once pre-patch hits, like tuning, all that. And these changes today did change a bit for Demonology, so tonight I want to look at that. Now, before we get too far in the video, first thing, well, the big thing, the Clips channel has been doing phenomenally well. Thank you so much for all the support on that channel, guys. If you hadn't checked it out, there's going to be a clip on that channel this evening, going up about the same time as this video, of a Pit Lord doing a lot of damage, which we'll talk about here in this video in a little bit, but let's just say power infusion might not be going to players anymore. It might just go to your Pit Lord. And number two, there is a number two. I just appreciate all support, guys. So yeah, if you like the channel or want to see more, hit the like and sub buttons below. But yeah, with that being said, let's just jump into it, starting off with the changes to Warlock. Okay, so jumping into just the demonology changes here, there were two posts that went up today on Wildhead. The first one did not have the actual buffs to Tyrant and Pit Lord in it. We'll look at that in a second here. But this one shows more in-depth nerfs in what happened exactly with Dreadlash and Fellsunder and all that. So, I guess we should clarify first. Blizzard has mentioned that there will be more class tuning coming this week. Now, there's raid testing on Friday, which will be on the channel here and on Twitch Live if you want to see it. I would assume we're getting more tuning probably Thursday before the actual raid, maybe Wednesday, but they've clarified more changes are coming later on this week before raid testing. So the changes that went up first, so Dreadlash, Fellsunder, Felon Steel, Infernal Command, they were all nerfed. Now, number one, the big thing here, Dreadlash has been cut from 25 to 10%. This is expected. Fellsunder has been cut from 10 to 5, which I will say this one's a bit interesting because if you watch like Primal Council testing or Aeronog testing on the channel from last week's raid testing, yeah, Demo Lock looked pretty good on Primal Council. It looked fine on Aeronog, but those are fights that were like made for Demonology's damage profile. Primal Council is a permanent 4-target stack fight, 4 bosses. They all take full damage, none heal. You're just implosion cycling and casting dogs that chomp over and over, and all your spells cleave. It's like the fight made for Demo Lock, right? And Aeronog's sort of similar. So I expected Demo Lock to do very good in that fight. Now, even outside that, though, Dreadlash dogs have been doing a lot of damage in AoE, Mythic Plus, spots like that. So I was expecting a nerf to dogs to some extent. A Dreadlash nerf is actually fine. It's not a baseline nerf to dogs, like a raw, like, melee damage nerf or an attack power nerf. It's just a Dreadlash, which is actually sort of acceptable. It is what it is. It's unfortunate, but what can you do? Fellsunder being nerfed is interesting. This is currently bugged, and only one Demo Lock can apply Fellsunder to a target. If 2 try, 1 just can't do it. I'm not really sure why this was nerfed. I don't think our single target's very strong. It might have a higher uptime than expected with Fell Might, the ability that reduces the actual cooldown of Fellsunder and other abilities, but I didn't think it was incredibly OP. It didn't really lead to any kind of like outlying like extreme damage, but it's been nerfed from 10 to 5 nonetheless. Felon Steel, Fellstorm, and Dreadbite were nerfed, or the damage amp was nerfed from 20 to 10, and Infernal Command was nerfed from 10 to 5 and 20 to 10 at rank 2. Now, Felon Steel has been bugged up until this build. So theoretically, at least for Fellstorm, I think it might have been bugged for Dreadbite too. So there's a bug sheet that I have that tracks Demo bugs and everything else, every spec bugs. Demo has still been very bugged. So up until this point, Demonic Strength, Felon Steel, this was bugged for a while. Our 2-piece, 4-piece tier bonus have not been working properly. Fellstorm is not getting any damage amps, which means Demonic Strength, whenever you've cast it on beta, has been doing a regular Fellstorm. It is not getting the 400% damage amp. 2-piece, not contributing. Felon Steel, not contributing. I don't know if this even works. Every kind of Fellstorm interaction's been broken. So this was indeed fixed this build. It now does increase Spellstorm damage and Dreadbite damage by 10% with the talent in it. But so while theoretically it was nerfed, we haven't had this effect around in the first place for testing. So it might be nerfed, but it was still a bit of a DPS gain comparatively to the last build. This ability here, Infernal Command, was also nerfed. Up until last week's build, though, this was not working either, at least on imps. It might not have been working on dogs. So while it is a nerf, it's only a nerf to the fix that it got in last week's build. So like and I'll be honest, it's not the end of the world. Like your dogs still do damage, your imps still do damage, not the end of the world. I will say, unfortunately, Demonic Strength is still bugged. It is still not giving you a damage increase. The 2-piece is also still bugged. So we have done all our testing for the raid on Heroic and Mythic with bugged Demonic Strength, but you know, it is what it is. It'll be fixed soon, hopefully. But what I'm getting at is like TLDR, yeah, nerfs are unfortunate. They do suck, but if you've seen Demo Lock and raid testing, we actually really didn't lose a whole lot of raw damage, like from what you've seen in testing. Yeah, like dogs got nerfed, which can affect certain things. This got nerfed, but it's been bugged. This has been bugged. This has been bugged. So there's that. And strength wasn't fixed. Now, there were some changes though, or some, I guess, buffs, which weren't caught in the first article here. So, number 1, Demonic Tyrant's Demon Fire damage has been increased by 50%. So, off the bat, this is not a buff to just Reign of Tyranny. This is a buff to your just straight up Tyrant's Demon Fire damage. So this works well with both Reign of Tyranny and Grand Warlock's design, which is Wilfred's. I'm going to call it Wilfred's forever. I don't know why they changed the name. It works well with Wilfred's and it works well with Reign of Tyranny. Now, Grand Warlock's design gives you more frequent Tyrants, which won't hit as hard due to not having Rain. Rain gives you less Tyrants, 1.5 minutes without, versus a minute, but they technically hit harder. We'll look at combat in a minute here. I will say the best option, in my opinion, is still Grand Warlock's design by a good bit. It is more of, now that Tyrant's been buffed, it is not a baseline Tyrant doing no damage kind of issue. It is more of a, if you want Tyrant to hit harder with Reign of Tyranny, you have to buff Reign of Tyranny. Reign of Tyranny is now the larger issue and not just baseline Tyrant, right? Because whenever you summon a Tyrant, it gives you 15% damage jump to pets, a duration extension to pets, right? Shards, obviously, all that kind of stuff, but you get the effects of Tyrant. And if you have Wilfred's, you get essentially, a minute Tyrant versus 1.5 minutes. So you might not have as much raw Demon Fire damage, but you have more pet extensions, more pet damage. And this build, well, I guess more so this build here, I don't know why it changed. The pet build revolves more around single pet damage, your dogs, your imps, your Felguard, your Vile Fiend, your dogs rechomping, all that kind of stuff. More dog sets for setting cooldowns, right? So for this build, I do fully feel that Grand Warlock's design is still better. Now, we ended up playing another portal build because on top of that change, fixed an issue where the damage from Pit Lord was not scaling correctly. Pit Lord can be wild. Now, we did some testing earlier. Once again, the clips channel will have the clip on it, where we lusted, I got PI, and then my Tyrant, or sorry, my Pit Lord, I'm going to call it Tyrant once or twice. The Pit Lord also got PI'd. It did like 800k damage in like 8 seconds. This thing is actually pretty insane. We have discovered that Nerfs Volition is now fixed. Oh, sorry, this is fixed. It only procs off of demons summoned from the Nether portal. It's not like imps or dogs or anything you summon. It's only pets you summon from the portal, which contributes to 20 demon max count, right? Nerfs Volition is RNG. These extra pets, if they proc, also do count towards Pit Lord, but this does indeed appear to be fixed pet count wise and all that. So Pit Lord, this side of the tree, like I said, I've been saying for a while, I don't think it's even been tuned yet. They tuned, Demon Fire damage a bit. They tuned Gul'dan's a bit, right? So now we're getting into like the honing part of like, all right, we're going to focus in on what's bad and hopefully buff it, tune it, and go from there. So I'm not saying this build's the best in single target. I want to make a video coming up soon as well, looking at like single target compared to Demo, compared to Destro, but I'm waiting for more tuning. The final change here is that Guillotine was fixed. Guillotine fixed an issue where Guillotine was dealing damage twice to enemies. It's more than twice. Guillotine was scaling quadratically. So basically, for example, if I threw my Guillotine at these 4 mobs right here, every single mob would pulse damage onto one another. It wasn't dealing twice my damage. It was dealing like 18 times my damage. There's a reason that clip of the Warlock hitting 600k on PTR with Lust was like, why it's a thing, because every single mob that it hit, the Guillotine was hitting 20 mobs. It wasn't pulsing 20 times. Every mob was pulsing onto one another times 20. So that's why it was OP. It's been fixed now. We'll look at both. With that being said, let's jump into combat and look at what the Pit Lord can do in single target. This thing is actually really cool. If you're a fan of Portal, awesome. If you're not, well, hopefully you're at least a fan of Pit Lords, because this is pretty cool. Alrighty, so the build we're going to play here is the Nether portable of Demo. There are a couple points you can put in certain spots. I assume you want in torn armaments. There's a chance you might want to play like a dog Hounds of War thing over it, maybe like Fell Might. It'll probably be a sim thing for the last talent point or two, but the big thing is that we have Tyrant, we have Soulbound Tyrant, we have Wilfrid's, we have Nether Portal, we have Volition, and we have Gul'dan's Ambition. Now, I'm not going to show both Reign of Tyranny and Grand Warlock's design. If you want to look at Reign of Tyranny damage, I said look at the VOD on stream last night. Basically, this is ahead of raw Demon Fire damage from like Wilfrid's base Tyrants by like an overall breakdown by like 1.5%. But you get more Tyrants with Grand Warlock's design, which buffs pets more often, which gives extensions, more damage. I think Grand Warlock's is just better for a handful of reasons. It'll be a tuning thing, we'll see where it goes, but the big thing I'm going to focus on here is Nether Portal, and Ner'zhul's, and Gul'dan's. So we're going to open up here. I don't have Lust, I don't have PI or anything. Once again, the double PI Lust clip will be on the clips channel, link down below. But yeah, so we're going to open up here. I have a 6 stack of dogs, not a big deal, it's whatever. We're going to open up, and let me actually reload to get my pet bar up here, it's bugged, and hope this works out. So, head on aggressive here. Alright, there's a bug with shard generation on pole now, hopefully we don't get it. If we do, it is what it is, but here we go. So, we did get it, that's okay. Winston, we lose them, so we go in, there's 5 shards. Portal, Grimoire, Vile Fiend, Dogs, Hand, Shadow Bolt, Hand. We'll do one more Shadow Bolt hand sequence here, and then we'll go Tyrant. Tyrant, Hand for the last little effects here. We'll Strength. Watch the Pit Lord. Here he comes. He has a... I can't even see him. He has a 9 stack. Look at his damage here. 16%, 19%, 20.2, 308k damage, 331. Dude, he's actually huge. He did 17% of my damage in my opener with Nether Portal. Now, yes, it is a 3-minute cooldown essentially tied to Portal, but it's a substantial amount of your damage. And the cool thing about this is that when you get Power Infusion, or even if you just get Lust without PI, right? Haste-based effects make Tyrant or make Pit Lord that much stronger. It means literally every summon you get, every pet summon you get, every extra 1-shard hand, or, you know, every hand cast you get, however you want to word it, empowers the Tyrant, the Pit Lord, even more. And technically you can indeed, you know, get PI with Lust. You can also just straight up PI the Pit Lord itself, which does work. He hits for a lot of damage. 331 on a 9 stack Pit Lord is actually pretty decent. I've seen more, but that's pretty decent RNG as far as crits are concerned. Let's do it one more time and see what we can do stack wise with him in combat. Okay, so take 2 here. Now, it's important, like, while Pit Lord's really cool and everything damage-wise, it's solid, all the above, it ends up being like 5.5 to like 7% of your damage breakdown when you're in combat for longer, casting multiple Nether Portals with Tyrant sequencing and Ner'zhul's and Gul'dan's. The other cool thing that we mentioned, once again, Demon Fire damage, buffed by 50%. So keep an eye on Tyrant damage overall in the breakdown here. Spoilers, it's still not decon. It's not going to be decon unless they buff Reign of Tyranny a bunch, but it's still cool. It's still an increase, and I mean, you know, glass half full, I guess we'll take it. So we'll open up again here one more time. No bug, which is cool. We'll go Portal, Grimoire, Vile Fiend. We got a dog proc, which is nice. Ignore that. Go into a hand, Shadow Bolt, Hand. We got a proc again. We can go Bolt Hand and just go Trinket Tyrant here. Tyrant, Hand. I'm not going to get the final hand here, but that's fine. We cast a Strength. The Pit Lord has 9 stacks again. Once again, he does a lot of damage on pull. It's all front-loaded, being a 3-minute cooldown. But Tyrant's right here, too. Doing, like, I don't know, 6.5%, something like that. Which, obviously, Tyrant, with playing Wilfrid's or playing Grand Warlock's design, however you want to call it, look at it, or whatever you want to call it, will sustain anywhere from, like, 6 to 7-ish% of your damage, roughly, depending on procs, RNG, and refunds. It's not terrible. It's not incredible, but it's better than what we had before. I'm not saying that the actual nerfs to, like, you know, Dreadlash and Fellsunder or Fellstorm are all offset by the Demon Fire buff. They're not, but still, it's a step in the right direction. And, well, I mean, at this point, with there being a little bit of time left in beta, but with some tuning still missing in a sense, you know, I'll sort of take what I can get. So, and the cool thing about this build is that while we are playing Nether Portal, once again, we're also playing Grand Warlock's design, or, you know, Old Wilfrid's, which means that we can still Tyrant nearly every single minute. So, there is a bit of like a conundrum, though, where you have Grimoire for, like, your, you know, large Tyrant at 2 minutes, but you're holding Like theoretically, your largest burst is going to be at 3 minutes with your portal being 0, 3, and 6 because another portal stuff, which also leads to more issues with power infusion. Because if you're a PI recipient, portal being very good, haste means more pets being cast during the portal, larger pit lords, haste to the pit lord, all the above. You'll probably get it on pull. If you're lusting on pull, it makes it even better, lust in PI. But the problem is that PI is a 2-minute cooldown, and portal is 3-minute cooldown. So having this Wilfred's like build here means that like theoretically you could just say, hey, you know, PI me on pull, PI me at 2, 4, and then 6 again for one final like really large nether portal, right? And if you do end up doing that, sequencing still works out pretty well of having, you know, Grimoire and Bialthine based tyrants every other, you know, big large cycle. So it'll vary a bit. Let me actually set this up here. It'll vary a little bit. RNG is RNG. It depends a bit on, like, you know, Nerfs volition procs and all that with your portal being open. But the average stacks that I've seen for Tyrant, sorry, for Pit Lord, is anywhere from like 10 to 11 stacks per summon. If you have like core procs going into it, it's even better. But sort of RNG. You sustain somewhere around like 41k self buff without power infusion, without lust. And this build, out of all 3 Warlock builds for single target, being the Demon Bolt build, being the pet like zoo based build, and being this build, feels like hands down the best recipient for power infusion compared to others, and the build that benefits the most from hasted effects like bloodlust, all that, yada yada yada. So we're going into the next portal setup here in a second or two. Currently Pit Lord's sitting at about 3.3%, which is sort of low. It didn't crit at all. It was a small one. It should be higher though either way. Tyrant being about 5.3. Let's go into the portal though and see what we can do. So we'll pop the portal here. We'll go Vile Fiend. Dog Proc is nice. We can go hand. Shadow Bolt hand. Shadow Bolt, we can Soul Burn. Go hand here. Go Tyrant. 2 final hands for 2 pet summons. There we go. There we go. And watch the Pit Lord rise. He's sitting at 3.0. He's going to 3.3, 3.6. If he crits, he can do more. 3.6, 4.1, 4.3, 5.2. He's still rising a bit. And once again, 5.8. He's at 6. And once again, this is all without PI, all without Lust. This version of the spec seems to benefit a lot more from hasted effects. So without fully crafted gear, all that, this is sort of where we live in. So Tyrant being about 5.5. Pit Lord being about 5.4 roughly. He had a pretty low crit chance too. It should be higher than this. This is actually pretty, like 2 pretty subpar Pit Lords. For what it's worth, we had a 700k Pit Lord from 1 cast earlier with PIs and Lusts. So the build feels cool. It's fun seeing the Pit Lord actually do damage now. With higher haste levels and like all that kind of stuff, higher RNG, you can literally have him do twice that amount of damage. We got to 9 stacks both times, I think. The max stat count is 20 demons from the portal. Now, it might take a lot of RNG from Nerfs to hit 20 pets and like hasted effects, Lust, PI, but the potential's there. Certain builds of Demonology, this build more likely, if it ends up seeing play in certain settings, looks to be a pretty good power infusion recipient. So we'll see where it goes, but Pit Lord's actually finally doing some damage. Now for this Demonology, big dog AoE Mythic Plus enjoyers out there like myself, the nerf to Guillotine today, I guess I wouldn't say nerf, the bug fix to Guillotine today, coupled with the Dreadstalker's nerf to Felon Steel, Dreadbite, and other effects like Infernal Command and stuff, it has hurt our AoE a bit. So we can take a look at it here. We're going to open up with normal dog build. I'll throw the Guillotine basically at the start here. If I get no bugs, we got a dog's proc. So we're gonna drag us out a little bit. We can go hand. We can empower the dogs a little bit. Why not? Sure, we'll do that. Now the dogs are a little empowered. We can go into a Tyrant, Strength, and just start casting some implosion sequences and all that. But the big thing here is that once again, Demonic Strength is still bugged. So I've been playing Bombers in dungeons recently just to get around that. Guillotine is not doing anywhere near the damage it was doing initially. We should probably implode with this dog set. It is doing much, much less. Once again, it is not scaling quadratically. I bursted like 85, 90k on implosions, just sort of RNG based and all that. But the big thing is that while the dog build is doing damage, dogs are still chomping. They are not like 50% of our damage anymore. They're like, you know, 40% with their melee and their AoE chomps and factored in. Now I can throw the axe again here, but the big thing also is look at the actual damage from Guillotine. Fiendish Wrath and Fell Explosion. They're fighting for 8th and 9th place right now. They are no longer 2nd and 3rd doing 15% of our damage. They have been nerfed a substantial amount. I don't think it's a big enough nerf to where the talent's not worth taking, but in 4-target AoE, I would expect the capstone talent that does, well, AoE damage to be doing more than a combined, let's see, what are they doing? A combined 6% of my damage right now. The ability being on cooldown for 20 more seconds here, going into a Tyrant. They're probably going to drop below 5%, so Demonology still does have the large AoE profile with Dread Bites, with Implosions. Once again, Spellstorm and Strength are still bugged, so we don't have all the damage amps there. The 4-piece is still bugged too, so we don't have these instant cast handing rule lands giving more damage, but I've been sustaining somewhere around like 71 to like, I don't know, 80k damage in just stacked 4-target cleave here. With a bit of RNG based around like, you know, Hounds of War rechomps and all that, so I don't think this is bad for us. I mean, obviously nerfs are unfortunate, but I think we're getting into the stages of beta where like Blizzard, I would assume, has a general number in mind where they want classes to be AoE damage wise, single target wise, cleave wise, and they're tuning around that. Now, Dreadstalkers have been a very large portion of our damage for a while, and they still are in 4-target stat cleave. It's 36% plus their melee being 6.2, so about 45 roughly, give or take. They're not 55 or 60 like they were before. Implosion's a bit more relevant. But the big thing, like Fell Explosion, Fiendish Wrath from Guillotine, took a massive hit. While, I mean, with it being a capstone AoE trait, it probably needs some kind of buff at some point. It'll probably be an ability I mentioned in the video coming up this week about, hey, this ability sucks. It needs a buff. I don't want to call it a nerf, it's a bug fix, but those days of bursting to 700k with Lust and 20 mobs being pulled and throwing a guillotine down, they're no longer a thing because the quadratic scaling bug has been fixed. And yeah, Tyrant's pretty bad too, but we're also in 4-target cleave. So dogs aren't too bad. The nerf hurts, but I would assume once again Blizz has a number in mind. They're tuning every class around. Yeah, warriors are still OP, monks are still OP, but they said tuning is coming this week again, so hopefully glass half full. We get something, because Demon was the best back in Mythic Plus, probably by a good bit with the Guillotine bug, and with Dogs chomping, like for Warlock, not out of every spec, but for Warlock. With these changes though, it might shift Affliction to being the best Mythic Plus spec, because Guillotine is not doing much damage, and Dogs aren't chomping as hard. They're chomping, but just not as hard. So yeah, that about wraps it up. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video helped explain just the demo changes, the buffs, the nerfs, everything to you guys a bit today. Like I said, I'll be making a more in-depth video coming up over the next week or so, probably once pre-patch is out, or at least like or after pre-patch guides are out, like Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, looking at like demo single target compared to AF single target compared to Destro single target. Now, AF is like fine in single target, maybe some buffs here and there I could use. Destruction is not very good. It feels really good in single target and in cleave and in AoE, but the numbers just aren't there. So I'm hoping that tuning they mentioned this week that's coming for raid testing maybe looks at AF a little bit, looks at Destro a bit, and I would even mind some more demo buffs in single target, because while the talents feel good, the spec feels fine rotationally, we are like middle of the pack in probably nearly everything, barring like stat cleave. With the dog nerfs and the guillotine nerfs, we're probably in the middle of the pack there too. So there are some outliers like Windwalker Monk, Warriors, and AoE that probably gonna get tuned at some point as well, but it's important to keep in mind that tuning does not end when pre-patch starts. Pre-patch is in 6 days. Tuning will go all the way up to beta launch, and they'll be tuning classes literally the week of the raid releasing. Now, the weird thing is that the raid is coming out normal, heroic, mythic all in the same day. There's no week between heroic and mythic. They're all out at once. So there's more emphasis than ever on having every single class be tuned properly, because if they don't, and the raid starts, or the raid opens, and a class is like Giga busted in a good way or a bad way, it looks pretty bad. Being the first raid of the expansion, all eyes on Dragonflight, race to world first, and well, all that. So we'll see where it goes. But TLDR, I think lock feels good. All 3 specs have multiple builds you can play in single target and AoE. Just the numbers aren't totally there yet. But this has been the case for Shadowlands, for BFA, and it looks to be for Dragonflight too. And in the end, I'd rather be middle of the pack or undertuned than busted right now, because busted means you're probably gonna get busted in a bad way. So with that being said, if I missed any builds or I guess any things, interactions, whatever in this video, drop it down below in the comment section. I'll be sure to get back to you guys. If you have any questions, put them on there as well. The Central Weak War that you see in this video is indeed available on my Wago. If you guys want, just put !WA in Twitch chat, or in my Discord, link to it as well. It is indeed available. It should work for pre-patch. I'm not sure. Maybe a couple bugs here and there, but it should be working. So yeah, there's that. And before we end the video, I want to give one huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you guys for supporting Patreon a million times. Really, really appreciate it. If you guys are interested in supporting on Patreon, there should be a link up here as well as down in the description below. And yeah, also, again, the Clips channel. Thank you for the support there too. It's been phenomenal. The Pit Lord clips will also be up probably about the same time this video goes up. Which, if you haven't seen it, you should. It's pretty fun. Demo's got some weird interactions, but like once again, we look like a pretty good PI recipient. So it might not be Decon, just we're Pit Lord Sans now. So with that being said, thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to hit the like and sub buttons below. It helps out a ton. And I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.